Long John Silver, you scurvy dog, you. Oh, sorry about that. Seems you caught me at quite the opportune time, both carrying a precarious hot beverage and also reading one of my favorite pieces of classical literature, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. So, you want to talk pirates? Let's talk pirates. Since the dawn of time, pirates were not there, but then they were there in the 1500s up until the 1800s. Discounting the pirates, what I would consider pirates of the past, the Vikings, very much seafarers and sea plunderers like the pirates of the transatlantic as well, but not quite the ones we're discussing today, nor including the pirates of the current day, meaning those who love to pirate movies online and torrent such things, video games, emulators, and all that. Couldn't be me. But on to the point. Pirates. Throughout popular culture and popular media, pirates are often seen as, while being, vicious scallywags who'll do anything for a gold coin, a doubloon even, if you will, are also very much lovable heroes. Anti-heroes, one would say, even. But, and while I'm not disagreeing with this, I feel like that's a little bit of an understatement, even. You would not believe how cold this tea is. I'm gonna go heat that up real quick. Scene change. Topic, still pirates. Let's get into it. Okay, so what is piracy? Well, I feel like that's a very simple thing to answer. So, even from the very, very beginning of when man got onto a boat and said, I want a thing from another person, it was simply to take something from another person or people, plural. And it has still gone on to this day, not necessarily physically always, maybe online and sorts, in order to take property from big businesses and use it for personal means, and to, in fact, share it amongst other people who are not privy to said privileges from higher-ups, wealthier folks. Yeah, so often piracy is done from the working class, for the working class, or just for the self. Very simple, very easy to consider. But as we continue on, this will become a little bit more in-depth. Now, what is the golden age of piracy? That was a time period from the 1600s up until the 1700s in which piracy was at its peak, at its prime. It was beautiful, it was glorious, it was golden. I'm sure, as you can tell from what I had earlier and also in the background, that I have a little ship. I like pirates. So this is a very, very fun project for me. I'd just like to say, first and foremost, for you to understand who I am and what I'm doing making this project, I love pirates so much. It started when I first watched Treasure Planet, then I went to the 1950s Treasure Island, then I went God knows where, but by the end of it, I have like 2 model ships, a bunch of pirate books. This t-shirt that says "Kill your enemies with kindness." It has a ship on it. Gentleman pirate style. Yeah, and just like a deep appreciation for what it is to be a pirate and the history of pirates. As much as this is a thing that happened in history, facts first, it is also something that I have taken away with a personal message for life. But back to the real stuff. Using my sailor's cross here, I'm going to take you back in time. Far, far back in time. And not using any wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey machines either, nor any telephone booths that just so happen to appear in random U.S. territories that shouldn't have any telephone booths anymore, nor with any silly necklaces that turn back only for a couple of hours, but rather, I'm going to turn you back in time with the power of storytelling. Now donning the sailor's cross, we are safe and fit to travel back in time over lapping waves and foamy seas over into the more British side of the Atlantic. With the express guidance of our friend Haley Dobby and their written work titled The Search for Freedom and Vengeance During the Golden Age of Piracy. Oi, Tommy, next time I see you eyeing up my crust of bread, it's not going to be the knife that goes through your bloody eye. It's going to be the blunt pencil. Oh, newbie. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you there. My name's Charlie. Nice to meet you. Well, there's a couple things you need to know about the Holy Mary, ship that we're on right now. Is that, number one, you're never going back. I don't mean that to scare you or anything. This place scares me plenty, so no doubt it'll scare you. But I mean literally, you probably will never go home again. You know, they recruited me about 6 months ago, and they said, you need a crust of bread to feed your family, right? And so I said, yeah, of course. I do need that crust of bread. I haven't had a good crust of bread in weeks. So I get on board, and I expect to pop right back off after maybe like a week. No? I know for a fact that I'm never going to see my mom again. But that's just how it is aboard these vessels. You know, I don't really know you, newbie, but for some reason, I trust you. So, tomorrow night, you, me, the crew, captain's quarters. You in? Let's take a moment to discuss pirates in popular culture. You have such notable icons such as Long John Silver, Captain Jack Sparrow, which is one of the more big ones, and even some from newer series such as Stede Bonnet, an actual person, an actual historical figure from the hit show Our Flag Means Death. So, about these characters, and what separates them from the reality of real piracy? Well, one for certain is that oftentimes not all pirates were very good people. And I, as much as I am a big fan of pirates, I also love to stress this. Not all people are good people, especially people who own vessels with weapons and a crew of people are not all out to do great things. Many of them can do great things, such as stealing from rich people. That is always a good thing. However, some pirates are also considered pirates, but are also more so privateers for the government or businesses of sorts, and they can do terrible things, such as raid villages, towns, kidnap people, terrible things. So, keep that in mind. There were pirate ships that did hold enslaved people, specifically, more often than not, enslaved African people from the west coasts of Africa and Central Africa as well. They definitely can be considered pirates. They are stealing things from people, of people, and yet it is horrible. So, it is important to differentiate. There are many good pirates. There, however, are a lot of bad pirates, as there are many good and bad people, and historical figures especially. That is something to make a note of, absolutely. But we're here to talk about the Revolution. Captain's Log, 1657. Now, where to begin? Yes. About 3 months ago, my men and I were taken from our home in the West, loaded onto a cargo ship made for the New World, for our captors wished to sell us on the market back where they came from. What they did not expect, however, was for us to overrun them, which really seems like an oversight, seeing as how there was 40 of us and approximately 6 of them. Regardless, we overran them, killed 4 of the 6. The two we kept alive. One was a doctor, and the other was a scribe. Thankfully, Scribe has been very kind in this, new regime of sorts. And now, he's been teaching me how to speak and to write in English, so that I may jot my notes down for the future. The future. Now that I think about it, where do we go from here? Often on such mutinied slave ships, the African people on the boat of no specific origin, because a lot of times these people were taken at random from random locations, mostly connected to the coast, but without any real knowledge of, their personal information. So I do not know for sure what origin certain people came from, like my own ancestors as well. But of course, when one turns to anarchy and tears away from the restraints of the government and the imperial powers, one must question themselves, and the rest of their group, where do we go from here? Well, there are quite a few pirates that would have the answer to that, and these were specifically called the pirate codes, or laws of the sea, depending on who you are, how colloquial you are with it. But for example, let us use Captain Bartholomew Roberts, one of the most famous pirates of all time, and one of the most successful ones. Many of Captain Roberts' rules implied certain aspects of life on the ship that we can only infer because there are only so many actual physical records of dealings from pirates, because if you had many of them and they were traced back and given to people who would later catalog them in history, you probably weren't a very good pirate. But these few laws did make their way back to us and to the public and pirate appreciators in the modern age. And one of them being no women or children on board always stood out to me. Of course, it makes sense, no children. Those little rugrats running around. Stir up the whole ship. Be bad. But no women. Why is that? I, your esteemed Captain Bartholomew Roberts, has laid down some codes to go from here on out. I see some new faces amongst us, so welcome. It's good to have you on board. Now, if you wish to make your stay here long, or your stay in life long, I suggest you listen very carefully to what I have to say. Now, number 1, no gambling. Now, I mean that very genuinely. I'm a no-nonsense kind of man, and I do not want to see a single card, a single chip, nothing on this boat. 2, every man has a right to say what goes on this ship. Where we go, what we eat, what we take, and who we kill. It's all very important for me to hear what all of you have to say. And 3, and this is more of a personal quibble for me, no women. I don't want to see a single woman on board. And I know if you'll disguise her as one, a man, because I know how to smell him. I think I smell a woman over there. No, that's just him. Never mind. But regardless. Yes, alright. Now I hope you all have a great stay aboard our ship and join our little family. Now you, the hunky new guy, come to the quarters. I have a special thing to tell you. One cannot confidently say whether or not Captain Bartholomew Roberts was a queer man, but one could guess. Scholarly guess, of course. Based on the few things that we have of pirates and seafaring men over the course of a millennia, we can see that often the secluded nature of a lot of these vessels fostered a queer positive environment for a lot of these ships. Not all of them, of course, but for a lot of them. We have, of course, Captain Bartholomew Roberts and his rule of no women, no children, but not no sex. And he did specify things like no gambling or card games. So the man wasn't a slacker. But, yeah, just these rare exceptions for queer safety. And so you could be queer on board this vessel according to these laws, and I'm sure that Captain Bartholomew Roberts had no problem whatsoever with queer activity. Maybe even not so for himself. Who can say? We also have such practices as mateloge, which is a French term that essentially means the marriage of two sailors. And so it is often held aloft in comparison to gay marriage and one of the first forms of gay marriage that there was out there in all of history. In total, the reason that I have compiled these different pieces of pirate culture together is in order to demonstrate the origins of a lot of these new blossoming pirates and pirate vessels stem from the oppression faced by a lot of these groups, whether they are from a lower class social background, whether they're people of color, whether they're social outcasts like queer people at this time. It's all from a point of trying to break free of the restraints that they are put under by society, whether it be societal pressures because of just who they are on the inside or who they are on the outside. No matter what, imprisoned by the imperial system and by, I'll say very plainly, cisgender, straight, white society, male society as well, patriarchal, it's just too much for people to handle. And so for them to break out of this mold by joining a band of brigands in order to take what is rightfully theirs away from the Imperials and the Royals is just amazing to me, and it fully is in what I truly believe to be the most unique versions of revolution of all time. And I feel like is actually just a very, very smart way to go about it for the time. Very, very ingenious, in my personal opinion. But, you know, that's all I can really say. It's up to each person's own interpretation of whether or not pirates were, anti-heroes or whether they were straight-up heroes, or if they're just people fighting for survival. Depends person to person, it depends on your opinion, but I hope this information that I presented for you today helps you find your answer, that answer for yourself. Thank you.